Hello, good evening. I am the friend who keeps telling you stories, Mr. Dread. Are you ready for tonight's story? We are about to begin now. What I want to tell you today is a story that happened in a haunted house. This house is the darkest and most ominous one I have ever heard of. After the hostess hanged herself, the whole house seemed to have changed. At first, it was just strange noises and movements, but later it developed into a weird, out-of-control situation. Until a neighbor asked a master to look at feng shui. As a result, the man not only failed to deal with the problem, but also broke his leg. And in that neighbor's home, someone was killed. So please listen carefully, because this is no ordinary haunted story. When Noah was in high school, he lived in an old residential building in the factory area. Not far from their home, there is a winding alley. Deep in the alley, there is a legendary haunted house, an old bungalow that has been abandoned for many years. This place has almost become a taboo in the neighborhood, and no one wants to get close to it. It is said that a family of 3 originally lived in this house. The man was originally a gentleman with a decent job, working in a public institution. His wife is a middle school teacher, and they have a boy who is 3 or 4 years old. The family lives a simple but stable life. But later, no one could explain what happened. The man became addicted to drugs. First, he squandered all the family savings. Then he lost his job and spent his days drinking and committing violence. One night, he lost control after drinking and beat and scolded his wife. The child was crying beside him, and he accidentally threw his son to the ground. The child was seriously injured and was sent to the hospital for treatment, but failed rescue efforts resulted in his death on the spot. Afterwards, the man was thrown into jail and his family was completely destroyed. Tragedy ensued. The mother who lost her child could not survive the inner collapse and secretly hanged herself at home one night. From then on, something went wrong with the whole house. Some neighbors said that they heard a woman sobbing at night, and others said that they saw a blurry white shadow standing in the yard, swaying back and forth. As time went by, all the residents in that area were scared away, and the alley became a dead alley. After nightfall, it was pitch black, without even the sound of insects, as if the air was frozen. Noah has 3 good childhood friends: Riku, Kenji, and Hiro. Those years were the rebellious period of youth, and they often went to internet cafes together and played until midnight before going home. That alley just happened to be the only way they could take to go home. Late one night, a few people came out of the internet cafe as usual, and as they walked, they started talking about the rumors about the haunted house. At first, it was a serious discussion, but then they became more and more excited and even started joking with each other about their courage. Kenji teased Hiro, "You are the most timid. Your legs go weak when you hear about haunted houses." Hiro immediately protested, "I'm a coward? That shabby house is right in front of us. Let's go over and knock on the door. Who of you dares?" After saying that, he turned around and looked at the others, smiling arrogantly and provocatively. "Those who don't dare to go are all cowards." Noah was actually a little scared, but having said that, no one wanted to lose face. Riku immediately responded, "Let's go. Let's each knock on the door. Whoever is cowardly is a grandson." The young men were full of vigor and vitality. After he made the decision, the 4 of them headed towards the alley. There is still some light at the entrance of the alley, but the light becomes dimmer as you go deeper into the alley. Near the haunted house, the air seemed to freeze and even the temperature dropped. Although it was midsummer, Noah got goosebumps all over his body. There were no insects chirping, no wind, only the sound of footsteps echoing softly in the alley. They shut up tacitly and no one joked anymore. The front yard door of the haunted house was ajar. The yard was overgrown with weeds, and the door was closed. Hero was the first to step into the yard, walked to the door, raised his hand and knocked 3 times. Boom, boom, boom. The sound was not loud, but extremely dull. With every knock, Noah felt a stronger sense of strangeness in his heart, as if something was awakening. After knocking, the yard was eerily quiet, with no response. The remaining 3 people stood outside, looking at each other, and no one was willing to step forward. Kenji gritted his teeth and said, "I'll do it." He had just entered the yard and was about to knock on the door. Suddenly, Hiro shouted from behind, "There's a ghost!" The sound was so sharp that it made one's scalp tighten. The other 3 immediately ran away. Kenji panicked and his legs went weak, and he almost fell down. They ran all the way until they ran out of the alley and saw the lights of street lamps and residents' houses. Then they stopped panting. Hiro then smiled wickedly, looking very proud. "Haha, you guys are a bunch of cowards. I just yelled and you were so scared?" Noah then realized that Hiro was playing a trick on them. Kenji's face turned ugly. "Are you sick? Who are you trying to scare to death?" Hiro spread his hands and said, "If you don't agree, why don't we go back and knock again?" Riku immediately refused. "Why are you going? It's already late and I need to go to bed." At this time, the 4 of them were standing with Noah and Riku in front, Hiro and Kenji behind, facing the direction of the haunted house. Noah noticed that Riku's expression was not right. As he spoke, his face was stiff and his eyes kept glancing towards the haunted house, as if he was trying hard to suppress something. Noah followed his gaze and looked over. Just one glance and my heart suddenly tightened. At the gate of the yard, there was a white figure, swaying from side to side, and the shadow was very long and strange. It just stood there quietly, as if staring at them. Before Noah could think about it, there was a flash in front of his eyes and the white shadow disappeared. He turned to look at Riku, who was also staring at him. That look clearly asked, "Did you see it too?" Noah nodded slightly. Neither of them spoke again, as if they had reached a tacit understanding. "Let's not talk about this." After that night, everything began to change. The next evening, several people prepared to go online together as usual. But when we went to Hiro's house, we found out that he had suddenly developed a high fever. He was drowsy and lying motionless in bed. Noah's heart tightened suddenly, and last night's trip to the haunted house suddenly came to his mind. He always felt that there was some connection between the two. He carefully told Hiro's mother about the knock on the door last night. The woman's face changed instantly, but she could only suppress her anxiety because it was already late and she couldn't ask anyone to help. Hiro's father immediately decided, "Find someone to take a look tomorrow morning." But Noah and the other 2 are very generous. After leaving Hiro's house, they went to the internet cafe as usual and played until the early morning before going home. That night, Noah had an extremely strange dream. In his dream, he was standing in front of a large, dilapidated bungalow made of old red bricks, a mottled wooden door, and a low courtyard wall. He didn't know why, but he pushed the door and walked in as if possessed by a ghost. In the yard, Hiro was sitting at a mottled octagonal table eating. The food is steaming hot and smells delicious. There were two strange men sitting in the room, also eating with their heads down. Noah looked at the familiar figure and quickly called him Hiro, but Hiro seemed not to hear it. He just focused on eating with an unusually dull expression on his face. He called out again, but still got no response. Suddenly, a woman in a white dress slowly walked out of the house. Her face was pale and her eyes were empty. She glanced at everyone, then smiled strangely at Noah and said softly, "We have guests. We are having dinner. Would you like to have some too?" After that, she picked up a bowl full of food from the table and slowly walked towards Noah. He was clearly not hungry at all, but the moment she approached, Noah smelled the aroma of food. It was so rich that it seemed to penetrate into his stomach, making him swallow his saliva. He was about to take the bowl when he heard Hiro cough lightly. The voice was like a reminder, and Noah subconsciously turned his head to look at him. He called again, "Hiro." Hiro still didn't react and just ate mechanically. But when he turned back to look at the woman, he found that what she was holding in her hand was not food at all, but a rough hemp rope. At that moment, Noah's brain boomed. This is the haunted house. That's the rope for hanging people. In fear, he turned and ran, hearing the hurried footsteps of a woman behind him. She's after him. She's gonna put that rope around his neck. Noah struggled while running, and finally rushed out of the hospital gate. Bang! He felt a pain on his face and suddenly opened his eyes. It was his father who slapped him and woke him up from his dream. My father stood beside the bed with an angry look on his face. "Get up quickly and go to your grandpa's house." Before Noah could recover from his shock, he heard his father continue, "All the parents know about you guys going to the haunted house last night. What's even more terrifying is that something happened. He was still running a high fever, but around 3 in the morning, while his mother was napping, he secretly climbed out of bed and ran out of the house alone. No one knew why he went out. All we knew was that as soon as he walked out of the community, he was run over by a truck from the waist and died on the spot. The scene was extremely tragic. This accident was like a thunderclap, instantly blasting 4 families apart. Noah, Riku, and Kenji were all rushed to out-of-town relatives' homes to take shelter and evacuate separately. Noah's mother even asked someone to send him to his grandfather's house overnight. From then on, he was strictly forbidden to go out at night and had to go to a nearby temple to burn incense and pray for blessings, staying there for more than a month. He had no idea how the adults dealt with him during that time, but he only knew that from that day on, he never went near that alley again. Many years later, Noah reunited with Riku and Kenji. The 3 of them still felt scared when they talked about that old event. Noah asked, "That night, did you have that dream too?" The 2 looked at each other and nodded slowly. "I also saw Hiro eating in my dream, cough, and that woman." They were surprised to find that the dreams were almost exactly the same. Even the hemp rope was correct. Noah asked Riku again, "Did you see the white shadow that night?" Riku said solemnly, "I saw it twice. The first time, when Noah nodded to him in confirmation, the white shadow was swaying at the door of the haunted house, left and right, like a pendulum. The second time was when they returned to the gate of the community. He turned back subconsciously. I saw that white shadow floating above Hero's head. His voice was so low that it was almost inaudible. At that moment, I knew that Hero couldn't leave. Noah was silent for a long time, then said, "That figure was swaying left and right, like a person hanging on a rope. It would sway when the wind blew." This experience remains Noah's deepest nightmare. The alley has been demolished, but he never dared to go near that area again. Even after so many years, whenever he closed his eyes, that flickering white shadow would still linger in his heart. The story tonight is not over yet. So now on to a story about a haunted house. On December 17th, 2013, a netizen named June posted on the forum, shared a bizarre experience at his relative's home. This incident still gives me goosebumps. June's hometown is Jingdezhen, Jiangxi. In 2012, his great-grandfather's family suffered a sudden fire, and 4 relatives were killed in the flames. This fire was not simple from the beginning. Whether it was the premonition before the disaster, the abnormality during the disaster, or the doubts afterward, every detail revealed that something was wrong. The house where the accident occurred is a typical old southern house with a spacious layout and solid wood decoration. At first, June's great-aunt and great-grandmother lived there. But after a few years, the great-grandmother asked to move, saying that the house was unclean to live in. She often couldn't sleep well at night, always feeling that someone was watching her in the room. He also said that when it got dark, the air in the room seemed to sink. Her family just thought she was old and had some unrealistic thoughts, and no one took it seriously. Later, the great-grandmother died. But the strange things just started from then on. The great-grandmother had a habit. Every morning when she woke up, she would knock on the floor a few times with her cane to remind the great-aunt that she was awake. But after she left, the sound still rang out from time to time. Again and again, it hits the floor and also hits people's nerves. The great-aunt said that she heard the familiar dong, dong, dong sound at 3 o'clock in the morning more than once. She was so scared that she didn't dare turn off the lights at night. One afternoon in 2012, my great-aunt went out to buy rock candy and was hit by a car and died on the way. What's even more strange is that she seemed to have foreseen something a few days before the accident. She suddenly proposed to move and visited all the relatives door to door without saying anything. A relative recalled that her face was dark and her breath was weak during those days. Thinking about it now, it was almost as if her brows were black. During the funeral days, relatives from faraway places rushed back to keep vigil for her. The house is big enough so a family of 7 can live here temporarily. It was a gathering arranged by fate. On the 7th night, after dinner, the family gathered in the living room and chatted. The great-aunt's daughter suddenly said that she saw several strange men outside the door during the day, wandering stealthily in the alley. She even suspected that one of them had sneaked into the house just now. When the family heard this, they all became alert. Although he did not believe in ghosts and gods, for safety reasons, June's great-uncle, that is, the husband of his great-aunt, after checking the entire house and making sure that no one was there, he locked all the doors and windows one by one. Even the balcony door was locked tightly. No one expected that this insurance measure would eventually become a cage that locked up lives. Late at night, the great-aunt's son suddenly got up to go to the bathroom. When he passed by the morning hall, he suddenly discovered that the candles on the altar had set the curtains on fire. Logically, he should have put out the fire immediately or shouted for help. But he seemed to be controlled and rushed straight to the living room and opened the window. With a whoosh sound, oxygen poured in and the flames grew wildly in an instant. The whole room suddenly became a sea of fire. The flames licked the ceiling, crackling like someone was laughing wildly. Afterwards, the son recalled that he was completely out of control at that moment. It was as if the body was held hostage by a strange consciousness and sanity was completely deprived. They wanted to escape, but found. All windows were equipped with iron bars to prevent theft, so it was impossible to get out. The only way to run is through the gate. But when the great-uncle hurriedly went to take out the key, he found that the key was missing. He clearly put it in his pocket, but he couldn't find it even after searching his whole body. It was as if something had deliberately trapped them inside. That fire ultimately claimed 4 lives. The dead included the great-aunt's son-in-law, daughter-in-law, grandson, and granddaughter. What is even more terrifying when you think about it is that these 4 people are all outsiders. The 3 people from the original family, the great-uncle and his 3 children, all survived. Despite severe burns, they all survived. Some netizens questioned whether this story was fake. But soon after, someone dug up the relevant news. On April 12, 2012, a fire broke out in a residential building in Jingdezhen in the early morning, killing 4 people and injuring 3. The fire was caused by a candle lit during an offering to the deceased that accidentally ignited a curtain, and the fire spread rapidly. The details in the report are almost identical to June's description, so no one dared to question the authenticity anymore. But the doubts are far from over. Why was there a water and power outage that night? And why was it restored immediately after the fire was put out? Why did the only exit key disappear and then reappear in Great-uncle's pocket after the fire was put out? Why did you lock all the doors and windows only after you saw a strange man? Also, the great-grandmother insisted on moving before her death. The great-aunt had a strange car accident, and all the relatives gathered together and were burned to death on the 7th day. Everything was like an airtight net that entrapped the family tightly. Is this a coincidence? Or is it an elaborately arranged death trap? The most horrifying thing is, after the fire, June accompanied his family to the hospital to visit survivors. The great-aunt's daughter, the sister of the man who got up that night, sat at the head of the bed, trembling and muttering, "That man, he's still here. He's also sitting in the ward." The family looked around and found that they were the only ones in the ward. But she insisted that the man wandering in the alley that day, sitting on the edge of the bed at this moment. So, who is this man? Why did they target this family? Nobody knows. Perhaps all the answers have disappeared along with the flames, the ashes, and the dead. So what do you think? Is it the dream that connects to death? Or is it that the house has been waiting for them to approach from the beginning to the end? Maybe the truth will never be known by anyone. But you have to remember, not every path you take home at night is safe. Not everyone standing opposite you. They are all people. I am Mr. Dread, a friend who will accompany you into the night with stories. If you have ever experienced something that is hard to explain, please let us know in the comments section. Have you ever seen that thing? See you in the next story.